Having made it through the 1990s and 2000s, Halton Lea Shopping Centre in Runcorn was trailing along, very rarely receiving much love from its ownership, management, or shopping users. It was choked by numerous short-sighted and poor-quality adjoining retail properties that only undercut any potential need for the public to shop there. The 2010s were, overall, a major improvement for Halton Lea. New ownership had been secured and major investment would follow. In 2013, a major refurbishment of the exterior of the centre was completed. Finally, the ownership had recognised and rectified the long-standing deterioration of the building's exterior and did a great job in smooth rendering the centre, giving it a modern and contrasting colour scheme of terracotta tiling, white and dark grey rendering. The car parks were also given a much needed refresh with clean and modern looking resurfacing and improved lighting. Coinciding with the new look of the centre was a major rebrand. It was announced that Carl Clawley was to become manager in October 2013. It was to be renamed Runcorn Shopping City, a very straightforward naming scheme that would make more sense in the pursuit of encouraging national retailers to recognise and invest in the area. Carl's goal was to bring Runcorn Shopping Centre into the 21st century. His experience in turning around Manchester's Arndale Centre made him one of the best people for the job. The impact Carl and his team made over the following years was exactly what was omitted from the Halton Lea era. Finally, Runcorn's new town centre had management who cared about the local community, who would ask for and listen to feedback. Significant money was spent on the external refurbishment, which Fordgate would never have bothered with unless it could directly make them money, but the Runcorn Shopping Centre era rectified this. The town square was renamed Community Square and was nearly constantly occupied with local events, entertainment for families and shoppers, and even the odd concert. Small independent retailers were encouraged to open up small concessions, bringing life to the square. Artificial grass, a little like a modern shout-out to the original carpeted square, was placed along with seating to encourage people to spend time in the space. Gone were the days of the cold, bare, empty Halton Lea Town Square, where anybody under 65 would swiftly be told to move on by security. This was a welcoming, habitable space where people were encouraged to be. This is no doubt the vision that the original designers would have imagined for Shopping City, and to see it become a reality was an exciting time for Runcorn. Everybody could see how the initiatives in the centre were coming to fruition, and how for once many of the things the local population cried out for were being made into real events and plans. One of my favourite details of the 2010s Runcorn Shopping Centre days was learning that they had employed a team of shopping ambassadors, people who floated around the mall simply to engage and assist shoppers. This was a genius idea. You could see how this would improve the experience of virtually any shopper, be it a scared, lost child from their parents, somebody visiting the centre for the first time, a little overwhelmed by the layout, being pointed in the right direction, or an elderly person who struggles to navigate or get around. The support and concern for visitors was at an all-time high. And yet, the 2010s weren't without issue. Some major withdrawals of retailers happened, although arguably were beyond the control of management. Tesco, just a year after its major accounting scandal and shake-up, had withdrawn from the centre, exiting a 125-year lease. But the resilience of the management didn't stumble on these events. Not long after, they procured an agreement with The Range, a rising star in UK retail, which the people of Runcorn were glad to gain, as many other towns and cities were at the time. Some other work was done to land the clothing retailer Pep & Co, with a large, bright and modern shopping space too. Much renovation took place to try and make the centre more attractive to large retailers, and not only did events hosted at the centre give the local population reason to visit and engage with one another, but also to become part of its success story. The box, occupying the long vacant former in-store or pound stretcher unit, was once opened and acted as a space where locals could rent out a table or space and set up a trade stall. This again is a nod to the space's original purpose as the shopper's arcade, which I'm sure the original designers would have approved of, although delivered at a flexible and accessible 21st century approach. In 2017, continuing along with its theme of listening to the community, the centre officially rebranded back to Runcorn Shopping City once again. This was a welcome gesture to the local community who had never actually stopped referring to it as the city. A new logo was coined based off some of the original signage from the 1970s, and overall, the rebrand was a success. Shopping City was back, in name and arguably in the nature of how it was intended to be used, as not just a privately owned shopping centre, but as a community hub and a destination tailored for those who surrounded it in nearby housing areas. Arguably, the original retailer lineup and positioning could have said to have been too wide and not nearly focused enough on the people who lived in Runcorn, and you could point to the failure of that strategy because of this. And then you could look at the many, many failings of Fordgate's Halton Lea era as trying to take it as a business first, short sighted approach where small gains and returns were prioritised and very little effort and research put into the particulars of the site. This failed the centre itself, turning it into an eyesore and a relic, and failed to provide anything of value to locals. Runcorn Shopping Centre and its evolution back into Runcorn Shopping City finally got it right. A community driven approach, bending over backwards to attract desirable and practical retailers, the sort of which local people actually shopped at for everyday essentials, as well as involving them with ideas such as the box. This really is capitalism at its best, used positively, a virtuous cycle of providing an attractive place to be that is safe and modern, an attractive place for retailers to be with competitive rates, and a venue for local people to spend time in outside of solely shopping purposes. Each of these stakeholders coming together can serve and sustain the community. In the approach to the year 2020, nobody could have predicted what was about to happen to the economy. Shopping City, whilst being managed productively and soaring in its community value, did not exist in a vacuum, and the wider world and economy still impacted its progress, as it did everywhere, to everyone. In the final part of this series, we look at the most recent years and speculate on the future of Runcorn's Shopping City.